Welcome back to Prescribed Vibes, your go-to space for all things mental health. I'm Sierra.
And I'm Stephanie, and today we're diving into a topic that so many adults struggle with but don't always talk about, which is making friends as an adult.
This is something that comes up so much more often than I would have anticipated. Making friends when we were kids was easy, right? You sit next to someone at lunch, you share a crayon, boom, friends forever. As adults, it's a lot harder than that.
Exactly. I completely agree. I think that we are all so busy between work, family, and just trying to stay sane that it can really feel impossible to build those meaningful friendships. I was just thinking about that this morning, about reaching out to someone that I've gotten to know, and then I'm like, well, no, is that too much? But so that's what we're going to talk about today, about why that happens, how loneliness impacts our mental health, and just some practical ways to form real connections as an adult.
Yes. So, obvious question to start out with is, why does making friends as an adult feel so much harder than when we were kids?
I think one big reason is a lack of opportunity. So, for example, I work from home, and it's a little bit harder, right, to be exposed to more people unless I make an effort to be a part of clubs or other social settings. And when you're in school, you're constantly around people your age. As an adult, you're working, you have a relationship, maybe kids, and suddenly trying to make time for new friendships also can feel like another chore on the to-do list. So it's just that balancing of how important is it? Is it convenient? Is it something that I can actually do without a ton of effort?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times, right, we transition from making friends at school to making friends at work, but especially since 2020 and COVID, there's just been a lot more people working from home, not having a lot of reason or opportunity to leave their house. I know I struggle with that a lot, especially moving from Arizona to Texas, where I had such an established friend base there. And then coming out here where it's very rural, I have friends here, but they're all at least an hour and a half, 2 hours away. So I'm like trying to get creative about, okay, I know I'm a social person. Working from home kind of takes its toll on me. I can't make friends with coworkers. It's not really an opportunity in counseling when you don't work in an office setting and you can't interact with colleagues like that face to face.
Right.
And so we have to kind of get creative. But then, right, there's also, like, the anxiety behind it. Even if we come up with, well, here's how I can make friends or, you know, where I can try to connect with people, there's an anxiety behind it a lot of times. And again, especially since COVID, a lot of people, almost like socialization is a muscle and you have to use it or lose it. And a lot of people lost it during COVID. And so a lot of us feel like, hey, we should already have our friend group established by now, right? Like, we said last week, hashtag no new friends. I've got my people. I'm an adult. Like, I'm too old to be asking someone to go hang out, or do you want to be friends with me?
Yeah, no, I get it. And, you know, last week I had talked about no new friends, but really some of us are, not just me. As adults, I think we tend to be more selective because we only have so much time to dedicate. And when you're younger, you're just friends with whoever's around. You have less responsibilities. As an adult, I think a lot of us are looking for those deeper connections, people that share our values and that get us, right, and that we vibe with. And that's not always easy to find. I think that if you work in a setting where you're going into work with other people in the office and coworkers, you kind of get that fix of socializing and you get that camaraderie with coworkers. But if you're not in that, and even if you are, you may not be working with people that you really vibe with, or you can have those meaningful conversations. But that's just another thing, is that social anxiety comes into play, like you said, and then are we being too selective, or we want to be selective, and that's hard when we have such a small pool to pick from.
Yeah, right. Some friends are more so out of convenience almost. And that doesn't make them, it's not demeaning. It doesn't make them, not good friends, not good people, but maybe like, if we didn't work together and see each other every day, we probably wouldn't go out of our way to hang out, but we do sometimes have those opportunities. And so friendships can be, there's a spectrum, just like anything. Friendships on the spectrum too. And, we have our acquaintances, we have certain friends. I talk about, friends and people in our support group being like different tools in a toolbox. You go to certain ones for certain jobs. And so sometimes we can almost be too narrow-minded about what a friendship needs to look like as well. Like you said, being too selective. But here's the thing. Loneliness is a huge mental health issue. Research shows that chronic loneliness is just as bad for your health as smoking 15 cigarettes per day.
Wow. Yeah, that's wild. I was actually messaging with a friend that I have in Florida trying to make plans to see her, and she was just describing what her life was like, and keeps to herself, plays tennis, and then she's like, but sometimes it can get lonely because if you don't have a partner, she doesn't have kiddos, and then she's like, everyone around me is old and it's hard to make friends. So we are seeing more and more adults struggle with this, especially after the pandemic. People did get used to the isolation, or if you have a job like we talked about where you're working from home, and a lot of them, it's tough. They don't know how to restart their social life.
Yeah, and it's not just about being alone. It's about feeling disconnected, right? You can be in a room full of people, or even like in a relationship where you're with that person every day and you still feel lonely. What's happening there?
Mhm. Yeah, something stood out. I was watching this show called White Lotus, and one of the characters, she was telling her her husband, they just got married, and she came to this realization. She's like, you know what? Being with you feels weirdly lonely. I just feel alone. And so I think that it's okay to be selective, but really having an understanding of what you want from a friend, what is meaningful to you, which is why I think building those intentional friendships can be so important for mental health. Just like Sierra, you were talking about feeling disconnected. That connection helps reduce stress. It comes with benefits, improves your mood, boosts that physical health. So if you're feeling lonely, it's really not just in your head. Your body and your brain are literally craving that connection. We are wired for connection.
Absolutely. All right, let's get into the real reason you guys are here. How do we actually make friends as an adult? What are the action steps?
So number one, let's talk about shifting your mindset. If you believe making friends is too hard or not worth the effort, you're not even going to try. So typical classical CBT, your thoughts will pretty much dictate what actions you take and how you feel. But if you shift your mindset to seeing friendship as a priority, you'll start making space for it. So starts with your mindset. I'm going to make friendship a priority.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like dating, right? You have to put yourself out there. You have to be open to those connections. And part of that is even just like the vibe that you put off, right? Your energy. Am I open? And are people reading that? And am I approachable? I think a lot of times barriers to pursuing new friendships can be based in our esteem and how we feel about ourselves and our identity, right? If we're not super sure about who we are, we're fearful of being judged or rejected, we can avoid trying to make those connections because we're not confident in what we have to offer as a friend even.
That's so true. So number two, get involved in social spaces. So where do we actually meet new people? One of the best ways to get involved in social spaces is by joining a club or a group, something that, sparks your interest, whether it's a hobby, a book club, fitness classes. I know, Sierra, you talked about doing your roller derby, going to networking or community events, attending meetups based on your interests. So, I've been really enjoying the idea of getting into pickleball, not to like meet people, but just to have some fun. And I'm sure if I have a good attitude, I'll hopefully make some new connections.
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes you pursue something that's interesting to you and new connections and friendships just kind of follow suit as you expose yourself to the potential of more connection.
Right.
Exactly like you said, I went from Arizona where I had a solid friend base that I had created over the last decade, and I had all of my hobbies and my go-to spots, right? I had everything kind of down pat there. I love to hike, paddleboard, kayak, road trips, those kinds of things. Well, when I moved to rural Texas, there wasn't those things. And so I had to kind of think outside the box, try some things I had never tried before. So I joined a book club. That's been really, really fun. Got me more into reading, let me meet some new girls. We're having a great time. And I got into roller derby because I like to be active and I wanted to meet other like-minded people who like to be active too. And both of those groups of people, right, there's a little bit of like, oh no, I'm the new person, how is it going to go? They're both such welcoming groups of people, so supportive, so open. I think as adults, we're far more likely to be that way, right? And so we can almost keep this mindset of high school dynamics, mean girls, those kinds of things, cliques. We keep that in our mind as we pursue these new friendships, but a lot of times I feel like in adult friendships, we're much more welcoming and open to embracing new people and people who maybe even aren't just like us. And if you happen to find a group of people who aren't that way, maybe they're just not for you. But if
Right.
you're not sure about where to find some of these things, there's meetup.com, Facebook groups. I've found a lot of things through Facebook groups. I got Derby and a book club all through Facebook. Community centers, church groups, lots of different things out there, right? And lots of different ways to pursue it. We just have to be intentional about it.
Right. And, you brought up Facebook groups and social media. And if you are someone that's like, well, I don't go on social media, or I don't post, or I'm not into that, just like me, I created a whole other alias just for the sake of being in different groups, not just to keep a feed going or check up on who's posting what. You can still make it happen. You can create something just for the sake of joining these groups and meeting people, which brings us to the next point, number 3, which Sierra spoke a lot about, is the being open and approachable. I think that's going to come with having that confidence, having a good attitude. It's easier said than done, but if you are struggling with any of those things and your confidence, your self-esteem, that's something else to work on. That's a completely different topic, but it's going to give you some awareness. Well, maybe I should talk to a therapist or someone. Like, what can I do to feel as if I can be open and approachable? Because people are more likely to engage if you give that open body language and you smile, you're friendly, you're into it. If you go into a situation where just like, I'm going to be quiet, I'm not going to talk, I don't know if I want to be here, you're not going to really get the results that you're looking for. So just keep that in mind, being open and approachable, having that good attitude, and making whatever comes from it. Just the intention is having a good time, smile, be friendly.
And I will say, like, if that's where you have to start, it's so uncomfortable to put yourself out there and go try something new. And if that's where you have to start, it's like, I'm just going to show up. Like, I don't have it in me yet to approach anyone or even to, like, fix my RBF. Like, I just need to sit here and acclimate to being in a social setting, and I'm not necessarily ready to open up or actually initiate conversation with somebody else. It's okay to baby step your way through it, but know that that's just a starting point, and don't get discouraged when you're not getting results from that because you haven't quite made it to that point where you are open to making those connections. But, small talk can feel awkward. It's helpful to have like go-to conversation starters, little one-liners, things that you have kind of pre-planned to be able to put yourself out there and initiate something. So like, hey, I'm new here. How long have you been involved with this? Or, oh my gosh, I love your outfit, your shoes, your purse. Like, where'd you get that? Or if they're wearing a band t-shirt or their earrings have, something cool on them or whatever that is. Like, oh my gosh, that's my favorite thing too. Or I love that band. Like, I saw them in concert in '93. I was 2. That wasn't me, but but just having things. I have part of my ADHD, right? I have to write everything down because I don't store stuff very well. And so I have a running list in my notes app on my phone of conversation starters. And some of them are jokes and some of them are questions to prompt someone to kind of like think deeply and you to get a better understanding of them. And some of them are just these small talk things, but they've been helpful for when I really want to engage with someone and start a conversation, but I don't really know how to go about that. So planning ahead can go a long way when you know you're putting yourself in those situations.
Yes, I really love that you have some notes. And I was just thinking as you were saying that, just that having that as a visual or just mentally preparing on what's that going to look like. I'm really big into using just mental preparation, see myself walking into a room, what are my intentions? What do I want to get out of that experience? So with that said, the segue into number 4 is taking initiative. Sometimes we have to be the one to initiate, and that can be uncomfortable and could be outside of your comfort zone. Don't wait for someone to invite you. Be the inviter. Put yourself out there. Start the small conversations with small talk. Compliment someone, be the one to initiate, and there's nothing wrong with initiating because remember, this is for you. Your intention is to connect. Go with it with a sense of curiosity, right? I'm curious about who's in these spaces. Who are these people? What are they about? What do they stand for? Put yourself out there and just keep in mind, what are my intentions? What do I want from all of this? And that's going to drive that initiative for you.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right, because you might be going to this new thing or this group with the intention of, okay, I need to make some new friends, which means I need to, initiate and connect with some people intentionally. That might not be the goal of everyone else there, and that's not to say that they're not open to new connections and new friendships, but that might not be their motivation for showing up to this thing. And so accountability, I think, can go a long way in these situations where it's being accountable to, if I want to make new friends, I'm accountable to that goal, meaning I have to initiate, I have to put myself out there. I can't say that I can't make new friends or no one wants to be friends with me if I'm not asking, if I'm not initiating that plan. So, starting with something small. Invite your coworker to lunch. That person that's in your workout class. Be like, hey, you want to grab coffee after the workout? Plan a game night at your house and invite some acquaintances or, people around and see who shows up and just start somewhere.
And you might be thinking, well, what if they say no or they're too busy or rejection comes through? And that's a real fear that we have, right? So we don't want to feel rejected or people just don't want to or not interested. But most people are open to connection. I believe so much in the power of energy. I just think that a lot of people just don't want to be the first to make the move. And you might be like, well, why do I have to make the first move? Well, because you are the one who is confident, you have a good attitude, you are striving for connection, you have those intentions, and sometimes other people aren't that intentional. They might just be used to being in a space and they're not even in that same mindset that we talked about. But if you're going into this with the intention and goal of, I just want to get to know people and have a good time and see where it takes me, right? If it happens to lead me to deeper connection and meaningful conversations, great. If not, maybe I try again next time or maybe I try a different group. But one thing I tell myself about rejection is, well, I'm not doing anything wrong. Everyone has a different walk of life, different backgrounds. They might be preoccupied. It's not personal. It does not mean that I'm going to stop pursuing what I want for myself.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say too, is not to take it personally, right? Like, just as much as not everyone you meet is your cup of tea, you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea too. And I know that hurts our ego at first, but we can work through that. It's okay, and don't make it personal. Maybe that person is in a #no new friends phase of life. Maybe they just have so much on their plate right now that they don't have the capacity to tend to and put in the energy that it takes to maintain a friendship. And so that kind of transitions us into our next subtopic here, is maintaining the friendship. Once you've made some friends, you've got to keep those friends.
I feel very strongly about this topic, maintaining friendships. I used to be so, what's the word? Maybe just stubborn or persistent about, people need to maintain friendships, right? Why are they not reciprocating, or why are they not keeping in touch? And I realized, wow, I've become such a hypocrite, because as life gets busy or our values shift or priorities, sometimes it's hard. It's hard to maintain those friendships, especially if you don't feel as though you're growing with the other person. But I totally agree. I think that the friendship piece, if you are in this path of friends and striving for connection, it does require effort. And I've called myself out on this and held myself accountable. Like, Stephanie, like, what are you doing? This is a friend you've had for so long. Why are you not reaching back out? Why are you not maintaining your end of the responsibility, right? Because it is a responsibility to maintain a friendship. Just like romantic relationships, you have to check in, you have to make time, and be intentional about staying connected.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes in friendships or any relationship, we almost have to hold each other accountable sometimes. And so rather than getting discouraged either by the fact that your friend hasn't been putting in that effort or reaching out, or getting, in a kind of anxious spiral with yourself where you're like, oh, well, I kind of missed the window and now it's too late and it would be weird if I reached out. It's okay to check in and be like, oh my gosh, life has been so crazy. I miss you. I'm sorry I've been so out of touch. Like, something as simple as that can bring you back together. Or as a friend to say, hey, where have you been? You haven't been showing up to this friendship like you used to, and I miss you. Let's reconnect, right? So we don't have to just abandon the friendship because it maybe did go on ice for a little while.
I love that. Because you really are becoming so vulnerable by saying, hey, I miss you,
Hopefully we're choosing safe people to be vulnerable with, right, in
right.
relationships.
And, case in point, even with Sierra and myself, I think this podcast, having that pre-planned, doesn't have to be a weekly thing. Obviously, this helps us maintain our friendship, but I think that having some sort of cadence to, hey, let's plan to catch up every other, let's plan to grab coffee, have it be intentional and planned out in advance. Every other Thursday is going to be our time to grab lunch or something like that. Having that planned out is huge, because Sierra and I do get busy, and I think too that sometimes even myself, like, she'll text me or I'll text her, and it's so funny. She'll be like, are you alive? And the other day I jokingly was like, are you alive? But it's having that plan and intention piece is so huge, because we get distracted, we get busy, making it a point, like, let's put something on the calendar where we are going to chat, this weekend at this time, planning in advance.
Yeah, and being intentional, right? Because that's something I noticed, like, maybe in my earlier 20s, right? All of our friends, my friend group, we'd be like, oh, we've got to make sure to get together, and we would just do that forever. And it's like, no. Everybody pull out your calendar right now, and we're going to plan something. And being very intentional and almost like rigid with ourselves in that, like, this is a priority as well in my life, and I need to be intentional about planning that and making time for this, because it's an important facet of my life. These connections are valuable to me, and they bring a lot into my life. And so we can almost sabotage ourselves sometimes, right? So assuming people are too busy, for one, like, oh, she's a new mom, or they just got this new job, or...
I think we all do it. We do assume. I assume that as you were talking, I'm like, gosh, I do assume, like, oh, they just started their own business, or they just got married, something like that. We're like, oh, no, I'm not going to bother them.
Which, like, newsflash, it's not your business. It's not your job to manage their schedule and decide if they're too busy.
Exactly. Right.
Like, you don't get to do that.
Yeah, I think that comes a little bit with that insecurity piece of that. I don't want to do that and put myself out there because I might face that rejection. We have that anticipatory rejection coming. So we make excuses. Oh no, I'm not going to do that because, they have this going on or they have family in town.
Mm. Yeah. So, but then they might be on the other side, like bummed out that you haven't reached out in a while. So
Yeah,
let's
that's true.
cut the mustard and just put ourselves out there. And not only assuming people are too busy, but here's the other thing I see a lot, assuming that we're a burden, assuming that they don't want to hear about what's going on with us and they don't want to deal with us venting about X, Y, and Z issues. Again, it's not your job. You don't get to decide if they're too busy or if they have the capacity. And that's where good communication comes in. Like, hey, I miss your face. What do you have going on next week or in the next couple of weeks? Let's make sure we get something planned. If you're too busy, let's just do a FaceTime or something along those lines. Or, hey, I've had a lot on my mind. I could really use a friend. Do you have the capacity for that? Are you down to grab some food and hear me complain about things? Check in. Let them tell you where they're at and what they have the time or capacity for.
100%. And when you said, oh, I'm a burden, I connect with that so much. It's more of it's those negative beliefs that we hold about ourselves, and I have to reframe, no, I am worthy. I want to share. I want to ask how they're doing, or I want to vent, or I want to send something silly. And if they don't respond or they're too busy, okay, that's fine. But I am worthy. I am lovable. I'm playful. And you just have to reframe some of those thoughts that it's okay. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just trying to connect. And if that person can't, then they can't. And that goes with sending that thinking of you text. It can be something simple, or setting up, what we talked about, the monthly coffee date, or a little tradition. Something that I had started with my friend group was game nights every other Thursday, or it can be, FaceTiming once a week with a friend. So just find what works for you, but bottom line is to do it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, if you take one thing from today's episode, let it be this. Making friends as an adult is hard, but it's not impossible. It takes effort. We got to be vulnerable. We got to be consistent. But that connection and the support, having that support network, even just for your nervous system, guys, like for your nervous system to know that you have people to fall back on will bring you so much peace like you wouldn't realize.
So true. And if you're feeling lonely, don't let that shame keep you stuck. I see this a lot where I'm shameful. I'm just not feeling as though I want to get myself back out there. I just don't even have any friends right now. We all crave friendship. I don't care what people say, that we really do crave friendship. We crave that connection. We want to feel seen and heard, and you're not alone in any of this.
Absolutely. Before we go, we want to hear from you guys. So reach out to us. Some people have commented on Spotify. That's a great place to throw questions out. Get on our Facebook, Prescribed Vibes, send us a message. We've got a TikTok. We have an email, prescribedvibespod@gmail.com. Send us your questions. Send us topics that you want us to talk about, things you want to know a little bit more about, and we might share them in a future episode.
Absolutely. And this could be a conversation starter with someone that you haven't talked to, or share a podcast with them, or ask them, how's it been for you? You can get as creative as you want. So if you love today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, share it with a friend, like I said, ask us questions. Hopefully this sheds some awareness and some reassurance that you're not alone. This happens to all of us at some point in adulthood. It's completely normal, and we're here to support you in any way we can.
Absolutely. Today's vibes are prescribed as friendly.
Yes. I love it. Thinking of you all.
All right. Take care, everybody. Until next time. Bye.
Have a great week. Bye.